not me, you know. But you're talking about a union between communism that doesn't believe God exists.
Right.
And you're talking about Islam that has distorted who God is and also orchestrated by Lucifer. So you got Lucifer, you know, pulling the strings on both the communists and the at least the people in control of the powers, you know, the levers of power in the Muslim religion. Now, within that context, you also got the Catholic Church that carries the positive faith. It's distorted it way beyond. We're probably worse than them because we've been given the Holy Eucharist. We've been given the faith. We've been given the positive faith. We've been given all of these beautiful graces and gifts, and we're acting like barbarians. Mm-hmm. So we're probably worse than them. This is where we're at. I mean, we talk about the distortions that are going on, but, you know, here's an explanation: distortion of empathy.
Well, it became, they used it as a weapon against you by making you feel that you need to do this. They wanted to make everyone into these giving trees at the cost of themselves.
Yeah,
and
it's bankrupt.
The Catholics and these NGOs, you know, brought all these people into not just states with the money from the government. They got addicted to all this cash, this $9 billion that went to these NGOs to bring people in. And they thought, well, we're doing such good, we're taking these people out of their suffering. Whereas you should have been going and helping them get out of their suffering where they're at, help lift them up. You don't bring them here and then say, okay, no more suffering. Oh, but wait a minute, you're going to need some help living. Yeah. Okay, we'll make the rest of the community pay for our good work.
Yeah, Larry,
because it's the right thing to do.
Open up the house. You got plenty of rooms, and so bring them all over here. Yeah. I'm sure people will help you feed them and clothe them. And
well, fight for apartments, fight for housing, fight for what's available. And they wonder why there's a housing crisis. Well, you bring 20 million extra people in, you don't build enough homes for them to take on that extra saturation. There's going to be competition, especially when they have an unfair advantage. They're not spending their own money. They're spending the government money. Let me have some of that. I don't get that.
If we had taken the money and applied it appropriately to the people that have generated the money, the American people, and if we'd not thrown God out of the schools and all the rest of it, this nation would have roads that are paved and schools that are sane, and the basis of the Bible, the basis of the Ten Commandments. These things would be taught. The distortion of separating church from state had nothing to do with getting rid of God out of the school systems. And I'm talking about the Christian God, Judeo-Christian teachings. But at any rate, this assault on God's creation is split up in a number of different ways. And I wanted to bring up Annabelle Walgini, who was the hitman on the liturgy. He was to take the sacrifice of the Mass in Latin and then flip it over to the New Order Mass. But he has a background in communism, so he was actually a plant under Pope Paul VI, to dismantle the sacredness of the liturgy of the Mass. In the Catholic Church, the Holy Eucharist is the epicenter, the peak, the highest holy of holies, because Christ says, I give you my body, blood, soul, and divinity. And of course we have seen Eucharistic miracles and stuff, that this stuff is actually real. So I mean, you can pursue and say, well, you believe that, Alex. So certainly do believe it, but our Lord gives us scientific basis also to ground that in. He was basically a part of that coup d'etat to get rid of the sacredness of the Mass and replace it with this funny little prayer,
right? With
Islam. I mean,
well, this inclusion, like Pope Francis having said that all religions lead to God, and saying, that, and now you even got Muslim prayer rooms inside the Vatican.
There you go.
So what's this all about? I mean, who's protecting the brand? Is there a brand?
Well,
did the brand change? Now we got problems. Now I've been telling people that the church is splitting. Well, the church is obviously splitting. Anyone who doesn't want to see that is not paying attention.
Right.
And so we got the SSPX, who came out of Pope Pius X.
Archbishop Lefebvre.
Is that he's okay? But
He was the one that he was very high up in the hierarchy as a cardinal, and he saw what was happening at Vatican II. He didn't want nothing to do with it, and he walked away from it until seminarians insisted that he continue to instruct and to form priests the way of the old style, the old way, the traditional way. And of course, you know, they're legitimate because they had an archbishop that could make bishops. And so the whole thing has been a coup d'etat. It's been and really now this book right here that Larry uncovered.
The Almost Insurmountable Evil by Mike McCormick. And Mike McCormick was the White House stenographer for like 19 years. And he was there writing it all down and trying to, journalize all this events that were going on at the White House. Word
He
for
initially
word.
didn't see it. He was just
Well, he was a good working Catholic man, and he was just so busy in the moment, he wasn't seeing how all this stuff was happening, and he was, you know, busy like you. He wasn't following all the details of while the world was changing because he was so busy in his own work product.
right.
But when he retired or was moved out during the Trump administration, he had time to reflect on it. He goes, "Holy shit! What was I a part of? Was I a part of this? Was I responsible for this? You know, I got to tell people." And so what he was uncovering and what he was talking about was how the coup of the Vatican in 2012, 2013 was all started with Obama
Evil.
coming in. It was an evil plan where Obama and his administration were working with the communists
Yep.
and the Islamists.
Yep.
That's why Obama joined the Muslim Brotherhood and put on the robes and all like that at the White House.
Wow.
And had the Muslim Brotherhood in and was touting how great that was. And the media basically didn't understand what the hell was going on, and they didn't report on it. They just thought how empathetic this was. It was all empathy to be understanding and inclusive. The same thing as this prayer card you've got there, this empathy to be inclusive. Whereas you got to understand, they're not looking at it the same way you are.
That's right.
And this is what I was trying to say. And you were
We got into it a little
well,
bit.
you were standing up for Jesus. I said, I understand. I'm with you.
He's
but
saying,
you
but
gotta
they look at
understand-
it much differently, and so does the general public.
Right.
Buy into the crap.
Right.
And you were saying you have to know where they're coming from if you are going to penetrate something.
You got to understand
meaningful, that's
what this weapon can do against you and how it's being used. You can't be so sympathetic to these things and keep giving into it when you got to stay. There's absolutes in life that come from wisdom. Socrates talked about this. Plato talked about it. Aristotle talked about it. Elijah even talked about it well before Socrates. You know, that God has certain rules and definitions, and it's not for man to try to change these, you know, to fit their need and to empower them and make their self-esteem go up when it's all about exalting God. Because, like I said before, you know, it's never been about you. It's never been about me. It's always been about God in heaven and our relationship and our thankfulness of being part of this nature and this life and this potential that we have. But so don't yield this out to somebody else's thinking and somebody else's trying to change the nature that we're expected to honor and take care of. So it's come from all these different viewpoints. Well, anyway, with the Mike McCormick book, he talked about how the whole coup d'etat against Benedict XVI in 2012. So you got to think about it. We came out of John Paul II, and John Paul II was pretty strong, but he weakened as his administration went on because these leftists and all like this were infiltrating, gaining power. They were gaining rank.
They were surrounded by enemies,
and he was having a tough time.
They couldn't take an axe to it because they weren't sure who. You know, they knew there was a lot of enemies. And so his Secretary of State, Pope Benedict the 16th, he knew it too. They said we couldn't do anything but simply go forward with prayer, go forward with, you know, what he did in Poland and all the rest. I mean, they tried to kill the guy. 5 shots he took. The Pope
John Paul II.
Oh, yeah, they tried to kill him, and 5 shots You can't kill the guy.
Yeah.
But it's the coup d'état. They knew it was coming. And Benedict XVI, and we'll go through a little bit of this to fire you up, but this guy, right, almost insurmountable evil that he draws from just looking at all the different people, who's going to visit who, and who's talking to this one. And
but this all worked out with, they used Theodore McCarrick, Cardinal McCarrick, who was basically facing prison time for his sexual abuses. But the church stood in the way of that, and then the State Department stayed in the way of it.
There
Why
you
did they
go.
do that?
Right.
Because they weaponized McCarrick, and they used him. They started, during the Obama administration, he started traveling from the White House to the Vatican and then to Buenos Aires, Argentina, on a regular junket was going on. And he was talking directly with people in the White House, and they were working out a plan, and they targeted
it's all right. Go on.
they targeted Bergoglio, Cardinal Bergoglio in Argentina, who was a communist. They
That's right.
Call him a socialist, whatever.
That's exactly
They needed a guy that wore that sort of thinking to come in, and he was going to be their plant to be the next replacement pope.
That's right.
And so they kind of cooked the books on the voting, just like they do in California on stuff. And
They basically told him, you're either going to step down or we're going to step you down.
they told Benedict that.
Benedict.
And
Benedict said, I'll have to go into prayer and solitude and fight this thing like our Blessed Mother.
Well, who was the last major visitor that Benedict XVI had before he stepped down?
Who was it, Larry?
Barack Obama.
Oh, wasn't that a kind visit? Wasn't that a visit of
Compassion and
compassion?
sympathy for his health? No.
So what happened on it?
Well, it was basically Obama went and told him, said, here's the deal. Either you step down or these Vatican files are all going to be released. And the Vatican files had all this information about the Vatican Bank and the money laundering that had been going on and all these things that they were supposed to be investigating that was going on. So there's three mafias in the world. They're all out of Italy, and they all run through the Vatican Bank because no one can touch the Vatican Bank. You thought the Cayman Islands was a haven for safety. The Vatican Bank was much more safe as far as being able to
billions of
launder
Catholics
money.
and money and property and the sovereign state.
Right. You can't deal with us. We're a sovereign. And so it's all been cooked. But what McCarrick did is he started grooming Bergoglio for a couple of years. And then when they were satisfied, and then the State Department started making multiple trips into Buenos Aires to go and confirm and make sure. So these are White House high-ups who are doing all this stuff. And at the same time, they're buttering up the halls of the Vatican. McCarrick's walking around with pockets full of envelopes of cash that he's giving out to underlings in the Vatican.
So they're going to be voting for the next pope.
They were going to be the ones, the cardinals did the actual voting, but it's the people in the administration that put the playbooks together and told the voters what to
Who
do.
you're gonna vote
These
for.
cardinals don't know each other.
No, you're right about that.
They're
right.
all over the world. They're not, hanging out with each other and saying, "Hey,
Right.
hey, bro, how's it going?
Right.
What do you know?" No, they're all taking care of their own stuff. They're all doing their own thing, and they're all trying to run their businesses, as you were, in the businesses of the church, which paid them because the knowledge and when people ask about, a bishop makes so much money, an archbishop makes more than that, a cardinal makes whatever they can take, because no one really knows how much a cardinal makes. And it's kind of funny that Theodore McCarrick had all the pressure taken off him during the Pope Francis administration when $600,000 went from his account to Francis's personal account. And so they stopped, but this was after he had done all his work with helping to lay the groundwork for the coup in 2013. And then he was allowed to go, I think, live out his life in a hermitage or whatever in Nebraska.
Yeah. And this
Someplace
is,
out of the way where no one, could deal with them. But
There is there, Larry.
so, no. But the night that Benedict XVI stepped down, the cupola at the Vatican was struck by lightning.
I remember that.
And there was a pretty profound picture of that having happened. And then several years later, after Francis was in, I think it was on his birthday, Pope Francis's birthday or whatever, there was something happened. Lightning struck the cathedral in Buenos Aires that had been Bergoglio's cathedral. And in that cathedral, in the mountings up along the archival structures, the promenade around the building itself, there was a statue of St. Peter was up there. And St. Peter had a halo on this one. He also, in his right hand, held the keys to the kingdom. Well, lightning struck that particular statue, knocked off the halo, is gone, and the keys to the kingdom are gone, and the rest of the statue remains unaffected. You would think if you got a blast that hard,
It made me think twice.
well,
about
the whole thing would be gone.
Probably, yeah.
But no, God works in nature. He sent a
That's
sign.
interesting. Yeah, sure.
Okay, we're taking off the halo, okay, because Benedict, or not Benedict, but Francis at this time was supposed to be the replacement for St. Peter, upon...
He's basically saying the succession of the seat of Peter no longer exists.
I'm taking it back.
I'm taking it back.
Right. The deal's off. And so this is pretty freaking conclusive to me.
No,
that
there's no doubt.
why
about
is
it.
not the head? Why is not everything else just blown apart on this thing? Why is it just the halo and the keys are gone? And the blessing hand, the entire hand is gone, not just the keys, but the right hand of the Pope is considered to be the blessing hand, and that's all gone. Totally gone.
Yeah.
If you don't believe it, this picture is out on the internet, and it's pretty conclusive in my book. But so how did we really get here? Benedict XVI had an occurrence where he appeared to a nun down in Colombia by the name of Sister Benedicta. And this happened, I think it was like 30 days after Benedict XVI actually passed away. It was a pretty short term after he died. This nun in Colombia had this apparition of Benedict XVI where he came to her. And he told her about what all had happened. And he basically gave his last will and testament to her.
Yes.
And let her know what had happened, what was the arrangement, what was the discourse he had with Francis, afterward. And I think you've got something there you can kind of relate on.
And we've talked about this before, but just to remind all of us, Bergoglio, or quote, Pope Francis goes to visit Pope Benedict XVI. And
this is after the changeover. So Benedict XVI was hanging out at Castel Gandolfo.
that's right.
And so Francis went over to see him.
He went over to see him, right.
The
Francis is now the Pope, and Benedict is the one.
Well, they're both like popes, I guess, but
Stepped down or
one had
whatever,
the chair and one did not.
And so Pope, in this apparition, the Holy Father, Pope Benedict XVI, says, under the seal of confession and in his unusual flattering attitude of false brotherhood. So he's talking about Pope Francis.
Oh, Francis is a two-faced.
But he says Bergoglio, he doesn't call him Pope Francis, he says Bergoglio, or rather Francis, told me in a mocking tone and in his very cynical and ruthless way that he liked to have the church in his hands, that he would completely destroy her and bury the Eucharist forever. He said, I will wipe your God. This is, Larry said that Francis was a communist, okay? So this is the only way that you can say this, is that he says, I will wipe your God off the face of the earth. I will have many allies to help me, not only from within, but also outside. The Curia kneels at my feet, and the college cardinals, they're faithful dogs. As you know, you can't deny that they're faithful and that they obey, and he smiled mischievously. He says, I brought them here for you, and in case you don't know, I'll confirm it for you. Consider it a favor on my part. I'm not as bad as they say, he smiled. and this time in a very icy manner. He said his gaze frightened me. So Benedict is saying that the gaze of Francis frightened him. He said, and having him in front of me was like seeing Satan. He said he confessed to me that one of his goals was to throw mud at the Mother of God, to eradicate the dogma if possible. That's the dogma of the Blessed Mother, right? So he said to trample on the Eucharist. And he told me that he would eradicate the extraordinary rite in one fell swoop. And the extraordinary rite would be the Latin Mass, and leaving only the current rite with many prophecies and sacrileges. Eventually, the new rite would work out. The new rite was worked out by a Freemason who was an expert in liturgy, and this is, what's his name here? This is another communist, okay? This is what these guys are up to, all right? And at any rate, he's gonna storm heaven. He's gonna desecrate the Mother of God, and he's gonna take the Holy Eucharist, and he's gonna make it filthy. This is called blasphemy. But this comes from a communist, and you're right.
And this was also written in 2013, before he did all these things.
Right.
Before he, stopped the Latin Mass. Before he, basically threw Mary out of the sanctuaries,
Right.
to try to diminish Mary, because they thought there was confusion, that people were giving Mary more laud than they were Jesus. But the same people who were trying to say that were the ones that were trying to promote abominations of nature. And I was telling you the other day that since this time, that we've been taught and forced and pushed to accept that which we were told to condemn earlier on. And so the previous churches said you need to condemn these types of things. You need to love the sinner but hate the sin.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, that's not really a sin. So
No, absolutely, Larry. It's unbelievable.
So we got McElroy in D.C., Cardinal McElroy there. He said homosexual sex is not a sin.
Right.
Francis echoed that. So what are we doing with here?
Where's the outrage from the rest of the Catholics sitting in the pews?
Well, I don't think the Catholics understand what was said, because I think Catholics, as a general rule, for the most part, are pretty lazy.
So they're not even aware of what's going on. Really.
No, I think I tried talking with a number of people who are supposed to be good Catholics. They have no idea what I'm talking about. And I said, well,
how do you defend the faith then?
Well, I said, well, what are you doing? Are you not paying attention to what's going on? Oh, I go to church. I said, well, that's not where you're going to find the truth about these things, because no one's being brave in the pulpits and talking about these things, because that's a career-limiting decision by a priest to start talking about this stuff. They'll get fired. They'll lose their job. And these guys like to eat too. So they play the company line, and they keep doing what they're told to do to keep their jobs. So this is why you have so many Nigerian priests.
Right.
It's an easy way to eating.
Right.
And so that's why you have so many poorly formed Nigerian priests and Indian priests, because it's an easy way out of a tough life.
Yep.
And then they come to the United States, or they get missioned off to other places. And what they end up doing is they kind of cheat. They don't kind of cheat, they cheat. We had Bishop Choleta out in the San Diego area. I mean, the guy had a wife and kids. I mean, he was seeing hookers down in Tijuana. That's how he finally got caught. Now he's on the lam. I don't know if anyone knows where he's at, but I think he took off with like $600,000 of church money over the years. But the guy had a wife and children that followed him from one assignment to the next. Who packs up, what woman packs up her kids and everything to follow a bishop to a new assignment? Well, a wife does. So the guy had a wife and children on the side, but he kept getting promoted and moved around by the church. They basically either didn't want to know, they heard, leanings about this, and they let it go.
He's probably got more than 600,000, but the guy's got millions.
Well, when they're in position, they can grift and take, and no one's going to question them on it. This is how things go. But it's a real problem in a lot of parishes and whatnot, where you have these poorly formed individuals being the priest or the pastor, and they're not being really challenged by the faithful, because they say, oh, that father's doing such a good job, we love him, and all like that. It's like the situation of the local church we got around us here, where there was a Nigerian priest in there creeped on a woman there several times, and was finally gotten out, but they didn't report anything to the police. The woman was told to and asked to not do anything, and she was assured that he was being moved back to Nigeria. Well, no, they let the guy stay in the country because why? Because he's a Catholic priest, and they said, well, if he goes back to Nigeria, they're going to kill him. This is what the suicidal empathy folks have said, that all Catholics in Nigeria get killed. It's not true. The priests are the last ones to be killed by these groups because they basically see them as valuable trade. So they kidnap them for money, and then the priests always come back, but the people die. The parishioners are the ones that get killed. The priests are worth money in trade. And some guys over there have been kidnapped like several times already. But this is a monetary exchange that's going on. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. Well, it is wrong. But I'm not saying the response is wrong. But this guy was allowed to stay in the country because he's diabetic. And they say, well, he'll die because the medicine's so bad in Nigeria. I got to tell you, they got teaching hospitals in Nigeria too. So it's not like diabetes is something they can't deal with. But the suicidal empathy from the parishioners and other people down there.
You were telling me that they're more concerned about that they couldn't give them a going-away party.
Right. 50% of the parishioners were upset that they didn't get a chance to give this creep a going-away party. I mean,
these are like
the 50-50 split. The world is messed up.
Farmers and stuff, good people generally that have been duped by this empathy that's misguided and distorted.
Yeah, and they see value and equality in trying to normalize these things that they should have been fighting against. And this is where we're at in the world right now, in that we have been told to accept and to honor those things that just not too long ago we were told to condemn and to fight against. And so this is where the confusion is going on, especially with the male brain, who's trying to deal with this natural response, that they're being told to ignore their natural response to protect and build up. They're told to just lay down and let it happen because that's what Jesus would want.
Right.
And I don't believe that that's the case.
No, not at this juncture, not with the positive faith and the graces and love that Christ has given.
Moving Mary out of the equation?
You betcha.
I mean, she's one of the original architects, is she not?